Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Born and dead, saved by love, count my blessings from above. Though in darkness, have no fear. Light will shine on those holding near. They know that sorrow they will pass. For I know in this life there will be something. But remember that love, yes it will. Love will reign. Yeah, love will reign. Yeah, in my heart I believe it. Love will reign. Oh, yeah, yeah. Have a vision, it's clear and plain. People living life, smiling again. Oh, see the children, they know no pain. Far from pressure, stress and strain. Oh, sorrow, they will pass. For I know in this life there's gonna be some pain. But remember that love, yes it will. I know, yeah, love will reign. Gotta believe it. In my heart, I truly believe sun will shine again. And love, I can hardly wait. We'll all be together. There'll be peace, peace, sweet peace, happiness and joy. Oh, yeah. One day, someday, hate will be over and love will reign. They won't last, for I know in this life there's gonna be some pain. But in the end, love will reign. Yeah. Love will reign. Said it in His word. Weeping may endure the night. Love will conquer all. Love will win the fight. So don't be discouraged. Don't be dismayed. Darkest hour just before the hate will be crushed, fear will be gone, love will remain and go on and on. Though the road seems rough, my friend, we know how the journey ends. Oh, yeah. La, da, da, da. La, da, da. La, da, da. Oh, oh. La, da, da, da.
Love will reign. We love that song here in the Love and Stuff community. And welcome to another edition, another video cast of love shows from the Love and Stuff community platform, emanating from the Love and Stuff page. Thank you for joining us, those of you that are falling in love with our time at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Little variation from our normal time, but it is our time moving through the spring, and then we'll spring forward to a different time for those of you that might enjoy a later show. And I am excited whether you're watching us on the Love and Stuff community page or watching us from the Marcus R. Holmes page here on Facebook, or any of the love groups or groups that are connected to us on Facebook or that we are connected to, along with YouTube events, HR Passion Guy there, Twitch TV, HR Passion Guy, Twitter, or on LinkedIn Live tonight. We are closing out our Black History Month celebration in a formal way. We will continue to be Black 365, but we will continue to, throughout the year, have segments around Black history and the Black experience. But today we end our month-long celebration with some music, for which I do not own the rights to any of this music. So I want to say that we are playing this under the Fair Use, Permissible Use of Copyright Act of 1976. And so we will be sharing music for your critique, criticize, comment, and criticizing of the music that we're sharing here. And later on tonight, we will have a few of the panel members from our For the Love of Justice series of shows who will talk about important points of Black history and share some of their favorite documents and or experiences. So we hope that whether you're watching us here from where we're emanating or anywhere across the spectrum of love, that you will take a moment and hug yourself for us, and that you will click share, tag 5 of your closest Facebook friends, YouTube connections, followers, subscribers on Twitch TV or Twitter or LinkedIn Live, 5 of the more popular ones, to join in this discussion by hitting the share button now and tagging them in this to help us celebrate Black History Month as we come to a close in our formal celebrations of Black History Month. We absolutely love you to join us here in the Love and Stuff community, and we appreciate your support, whether you're watching again live with us across platforms, or if you get the opportunity to watch this at some later time. We're just excited that you are here and wanted to have an opportunity to share some music and some thoughts with you on Black history. You know, for me, music has been a part of my life always. I can't remember a day or time that there wasn't music around me, in me, through me, for me. And so an important part of the Black experience has been our music and what we have contributed through music to this entire world, because music has always played a central role in African American or the Black experience and in our culture. It served as a means of expression, a means of communication, a means of resistance. And so we're going to look at various periods from times maybe as early as the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 to the 21st century music, the music of the Black experience, influenced by the Black experience or the African American experience, has evolved and transformed while yet leaving an indelible mark on African American history, legacy, and the American culture. One of the first pieces that we will share is around Negro spirituals. And if you know anything about that, give me some likes or loves. It's also been known for some as slave songs, and they were a form of religious music that emerged during slavery in the United States primarily. These songs were often sung in call and answer response style and incorporated African rhythms and melodies with Christian themes. The lyrics of the songs often contain coded messages that were used to communicate important information among slaves. Some of the famous ones, and I'm sure you could drop in the comments ones that you know as being famous: Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, tell all of my friends that I'm a coming too. coming for to carry me home, and wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water, right? You can hear the code lined in those lyrics, right? These songs have been performed by various artists throughout history, and we're going to share one that was performed by Mahalia Jackson. They've also been performed by Paul Robeson and Marian Anderson. So we're going to share Go Down Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell, O Pharaoh, to let my people go. It's love and stuff, and I hope you will click share for those that will share in the Black History experience with us around music. We do not own the rights to this music.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell, O Pharaoh, to let my people go. When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people, let them go. Oppressed so hard that they couldn't stand. God said to let my people, let them go. Go down, Moses, way down in the Egypt land. Tell, O Pharaoh, and let my people, let my people, let my people, go.
Let my people go. So beautifully done. And we do not own the rights. As a part of the Copyright Act of 1976, fair use for comment and criticism, do we share this music in this hour? Our Marcus Holmes, the love activist, and I am advocating for better love for you and me. And my love has been filled all my life with music. And as part of African American history, as a part of Black history, music has played a central role to that. And so all hour long, we're going to be sharing music from various genres, sharing a little bit of information about that music. And then later on in the hour, For the Love of Justice will join us with some important facts around history and documents that you don't want to miss. So click share and tag someone to join us, whether you're watching us here on Facebook or any of the love groups on YouTube events, Twitch TV, Twitter, or LinkedIn Live. Welcome, and we're happy to have you. As we continue on this journey, we talk a little bit about the blues. The blues emerged in the late 19th century as a form of music that expressed the hardships and struggles of African American or Black life. The genre was characterized by its use of a 12-bar structure and a call and response format. The lyrics of the blues often dealt with themes such as poverty, love, and heartbreak. Famous blues musicians include Bessie Smith, Robert Jones, and Muddy Waters. And of course, we could go on and on and on for the types of music that we can share in each genre. So I didn't necessarily pull a favorite from each genre, but I tried to choose something that maybe somebody might not have heard before, or maybe something new to hear. So sharing from Bessie Smith, I wanted to share that. I ain't got nobody. We're here on Love and Stuff. You should click share as we're celebrating the influence of music on the African American and Black experience. Bessie Smith, and you will hear some of the early influences of kind of the ragtime sound in that one when you think about the early days of the blues. I'm Marcus Holmes, and I'm sharing how music has influenced the Black experience and why we should celebrate it, how it covers the gamut of struggle, of test, of triumph, love and heartbreak, and everything that could be experienced, resistance, in the African American Black experience. I hope that you are enjoying it and will click share to share with others as we continue to move through this journey all hour long. And joining us later will be members of the For Love of Justice, faces that are familiar to you in the Love and Stuff community, who will share with us some of their very favorite documents and events in history. You don't want to miss it. So click share and tag someone to join us and enjoy the music. as we continue, we talk a little bit about jazz, which you may know is a genre of music that originated in the African American Black community in New Orleans, or New Orleans, depending on how you want to say it, in the early 20th century. It is characterized by its improvisation and syncopated rhythms. Jazz has been an important part of the American culture, and it has influenced many other genres of music, including rock and roll, hip hop, and pop, and classical, and the list could go on and on. Famous jazz musicians include Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Charlie Parker, who we will hear a little bit from. Charlie Parker, Body and Soul. You're watching Loving Stuff, and I hope that you will keep watching and click share now. Body and Soul, Charlie Parker. As you can see, the improvisation and syncopated rhythms, characteristic of both instrumentation and vocal orchestration. Kudos and bravo to all who have contributed to the American culture through the medium of jazz. May it continue to live and thrive through us all. I'm Marcus Holmes, and whether you're watching us across any or all of the platforms from LinkedIn Live to Facebook to Twitch to Twitter to YouTube events, click share and tag someone to join us as we close out a month of celebration around Black history with a look at some of the music and various genres that have impacted the American culture through the Black and African American experience. And as we move to another genre of music that I often heard as a child throughout my life and have a great appreciation and am a big aficionado. I could tell you of many different artists, and I'm very pleased to share one tonight who is one of my favorites. I hope that you listen to and will enjoy gospel music. It emerged, as you may know, in the early 20th century as a form of Christian music that was heavily influenced by the African American Black music traditions. Gospel music was characterized by its use of call and response vocals and its incorporation of traditional African American Black music styles such as blues and jazz. Famous musicians include a host of people from Mahalia Jackson to Shirley Caesar, from Thomas Anthony Whitfield to Kirk Franklin, and just about every person in between. Well, tonight, although we don't have the rights to any of this music, we play it under a permitted use, fair use under the Copyright Act of 1976. I want to share with you one of my favorite musicians, vocalists, and influences in gospel music, whose voice was one of a kind. I don't think there is another voice like the magical voice of Daryl Coley.
Daryl Cooley.
If my people who are called by my name would humble themselves He promised he forgive every one of our sins, and he'll heal the land. He'll heal the land. I've read the word, and it promised that he would. Yes. He will forgive every one of our sins, and he will heal the
I don't know about you. I was swaying along to that music. Prayer is the answer. We are live on Love and Stuff, and we are sharing gospel music at this moment and other music and genres throughout this evening as we close out our Black History Month celebrations. What about you? Can you think about a gospel song that you listen to and enjoy all throughout your time? Maybe not that specific genre, but it is a genre that I think is powerful. And I think you could probably feel the power of Daryl Coley's gift, bless his memory. And we're grateful for all of those who have shared in the legacy and history of music, and particularly for this segment, gospel music. We will be right back. What you wear says something about you, about who you are, what you believe, and what you stand for. So here in the Love and Stuff community, we wear the brand that we live, and we live the brand that we wear because we love the brand. It's all about increasing the amount of love in the world and upping our love game. And if that's what you're about, you should wear it too. If you're about love, you should consider wearing our brand. You should wear the brand you love. You should love the brand you wear. You should live the brand. And so we'll have opportunities later on in this video cast to give you a chance to put on some Love and Stuff gear and put your love front and center. As we continue in our celebration of music as it has impacted the African American experience, we have to talk about rhythm and blues, R&B, which emerged in the 1940s as a form of African American or Black popular music. It combined elements of jazz, blues, and gospel music and was characterized by its use of a strong beat and catchy melodies. R&B has had significant impact on popular music and has influenced many other genres, including rock and roll, soul, neo-soul, and hip-hop. Some of the famous musicians include Ray Charles and James Brown and many others. And one of my other favorite artists that I want to share is Marvin Gaye. And I'm going to share two pieces from Marvin Gaye because I think that you will agree with me. He made one of the soul-stirring renditions of the Star-Spangled Banner. And I had to share it along with another piece right here in the Love and Stuff community. Marvin Gaye as he shares the Star-Spangled Banner.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh the fight. Oh, the ramparts we won were so gallantly
A masterful gift and a masterful performance. Marvin Gaye puts the R in R&B for me. I don't know about you. Drop in the comments your favorite R&B artist. I know growing up, I was mesmerized by that voice and wanted to emulate it when I was very young. And so another piece that is more speaking to the environment of the day, to the resistance of the day by Marvin Gaye. We will play that piece as well. I think it's important to highlight some of those pieces that spoke to our resistance and our current state of affairs. And this piece by Marvin Gaye, which is familiar, we do not own the rights to this music, but we are using it as a permissible use under the Copyright Act of 1976 for fair use for the purpose of commentary and criticism. It's Marvin Gaye, What's Going On?
Hey, what's up now? Brother, what's up? This is a big party, man. Yeah, brother, like it. Solid. Right on. Hey, man, what's your name?
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see, oh, what's going on, what's going on, yeah, what's going on, oh, what's going on, right on.
Hey, man, what's your name?
Right on. Right on.
Everything?
Mother, everybody thinks we're wrong. Oh, but who are they to judge us? Simply cause our hair is long. Oh, you know we've got to find a way. Bring some understanding here today. Picket line and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. Yeah, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Right on, right on. Right on. Right on. Right on.
one of my favorite artists of all times, Marvin Gaye. I'm Marcus Holmes, and I'm sharing with you music that has impacted the African American experience. And those two pieces, of course, were from Marvin Gaye and from Rhythm and Blues, which I say shall live on forever. I am sharing more music as we come to the close of this first segment, and we will have members of our For the Love of Justice join us. So don't you go anywhere. Click share and tag some folks to come. I know people are coming in and out, and I love it. Tag some folks across platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, Twitch TV, Twitter, or YouTube events, to join us as we celebrate the power of Black music and African American music and its impact, its rich history and legacy on the American culture and experience. And so I hope that you will click share and tag 5 of your closest connections, friends, or subscribers, 5 of the more popular ones, to join us tonight in this celebration as we close out this, the last day of February, the Black History Month, but we're Black 365, and throughout the year, we'll continue to celebrate many aspects of the African American and Black experience that have impacted the world. And so as I continue on with music, we're going back again to the 1917s, the early 1900s. Of course, we have to acknowledge Lift Every Voice and Sing, that was written by James Weldon Johnson and composed by his brother, John Rosamond Johnson. It originally was performed in 1900 by a choir of 500 school children. And I wanted to make sure we made mention of that. And later in Black Music Month this year, you'll hear various arrangements, as I love to play one from the Aeolians, that is an arrangement by Roland Carter. But tonight we continue with a spiritual, Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, that has been recorded by many African American Black artists throughout history, including Paul Robeson, Mahalia Jackson, and Louis Armstrong. It was first published in 1917 in a collection of spirituals titled Old Plantation Hymns. Well, I want to share this one that has a little bit of instrumentation and voice infused in this presentation, and I hope that you will enjoy it. Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, Louis Armstrong.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, a little light spiritual called Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord. Sometimes I'm almost to the ground. Oh, yes, Lord. Oh, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory,
Glory, hallelujah. Ella Fitzgerald from the 20s of a song that was written by Fats Waller and company, Fats Waller, Harry Brooks, and Andre Razaf in 1929, became a hit and is now considered a jazz standard. And so here, the lady of jazz, Ella Fitzgerald, we do not own the rights to this music, but we wanted to share this music with you for the purpose of commentary and critique. Enjoy.
No one to talk with, all by myself. No one to walk with, but I'm happy on the shelf. Ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love for you. I know for certain the one I love, I'm through with flirting, it's just you I'm thinking of. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you. Like Jack Horner in the corner, don't go nowhere, what do I care? Your kisses are worth waiting for, believe me. I don't stay out late, don't care to go. I'm home about 8, just me and my radio. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you. In the corner, don't go nowhere, what do I care? Your kisses are worth waiting for, believe me. I don't stay out late, don't care to go. I'm home about 8, just me and my radio. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you.
Ain't Misbehaving, the lady of jazz, Ella Fitzgerald. We are sharing music and we do not own the rights to this music, but we want to celebrate Black history through music. And as we're moving along into the 30s, Strange Fruit was written by Abel Meeropol and famously performed by the Billie Holiday in 1939. This song has a haunting and powerful indictment on lynching in the United States. It has become an important symbol of struggle for the civil rights movement, and it has been covered by many artists throughout the years. And I wanted to share Strange Fruit by Miss Billie Holiday.
Southern trees bear a strange fruit. Blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here's a strange and bitter
Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. I'm Marcus Holmes, the love activist, and we are celebrating Black History Month as we close out this month. I hope you will click, share, and tag 5 of your closest Facebook friends, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch TV, LinkedIn Live friends, 5 of the more popular ones, to join us in the celebration as we look at the impact of music. Some of the music, there was volumes of music, but some of the music as it has impacted the culture. And as I mentioned in the top of this segment, this song has become a symbol in the civil rights struggle, especially as it relates to lynching of African American men and women, particularly in the United States. And I want to continue. Did you know that Hound Dog, which was written by Jerry Lieber and Michael Stoller, which was famously performed by Elvis, was not first performed by him? It was originally recorded by Big Mama Thornton in 1952. Her version was a hit in the rhythm and blues genre, while Presley's version became a rock and roll classic. I want to share with you Big Mama Thornton's version of Hound Dog for your enjoyment, to know that many of the songs that we enjoy came from the powerful voices and recordings of African Americans. Big Mama Thornton, Hound Dog.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, been snooping on the door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, been snooping on the door. You can wag your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more. You told me you was hot, but I can see through that. You told me you was hot, but I can see through that. And Daddy, I know you ain't no real cool cat. You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
my door. You can wag your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more. Oh, blood oh, listen to them old hound dogs. Oh, it's all right up here. Now listen to that old hound dog howl. Oh, play it, boy, play it. Oh, it makes you feel good. Oh, don't mess around with Lucky. Now wag your tail. Oh, get it. Oh, get it now. Get it, get it, get it. Oh, you hound dog. You made me feel so blue. You made me weep and moan. You made me feel so blue. Yeah, you made me weep and moan. 'Cause you ain't looking for a woman. Are you looking for? You ain't nothing but a hound dog with snooping on my door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog with snooping on my door. You wag your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more.
I love it. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Give some likes and loves for Big Mama Thornton, who first recorded Hound Dog in 1952 before Elvis Presley made it a rock and roll classic. I am Marcus Holmes, and I am sharing music with you from various genres. And as we go to the close of this first segment, I want to share with you from Porgy and Bess a beautiful song, Summertime, written by George and Ira Gershwin and Du Bois Hayward for the opera Porgy and Bess. In 1935, the song was famously recorded by Ella Fitzgerald. They wrote it for the play in 1935, but the song was famously recorded by her in the 50s. And her version became a hit and is now considered a classic of the jazz genre. It has been covered by so many artists, too many to name over the years, but it remains a popular tune today. And so as we go to the close of this segment and prepare to bring on members of the For the Love of Justice, I want to share with you Summertime.
Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich, and your ma is good looking. So hush, little baby, baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. You're gonna spread your wings, and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning, there's nothing can So be quiet, keep still. Shh. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna wake up singing. You're gonna spread your wings and you take to the sky. But till that morning, there's enough can harm you with daddy and mommy standing by. They say summertime, the living's easy. What makes it easy? You have to go out and work. So you go out and you do a day's work. It's so warm, it's so hot, you perspire. Yes, you perspire. And you perspire. What do you get? Perspiration. But you don't mind it because it's summertime and the living's easy. So you say, I think I'll go down. Let's go down and dig the real cool sounds at Mr. Kelly's. You come in Mr. Kelly's and you taste a while. Yes, Daddy, you drink a while. And you drink. What do you get? The check. You don't mind it because it's summertime. The living's easy. What do you care? Your daddy's rich? You got a good-looking mother? Imagine everybody with a good-looking mother and a rich daddy. Ho-ho. Summertime. That's what the song says. Living easy. Oh, yeah. Summertime. 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 And the living is easy. Thank you.
In honor of Black History Month, lift every voice and sing.
I love it. I love it. This is the second half of our Black History celebration. And I must say, I am and have been very honored to have some skillfully amazing, wonderful, talented, brilliant, smart, beautiful, handsome people within the Love and Stuff community that I get to be the facilitator of. Among them is Byron Stanfield, who, as you may have heard many years ago, was talking about a Huffington Post article around the faithless electors, which really launched all of these discussions around love and stuff. It really was from a justice standpoint. And Byron is an accomplished musician, writer, artist, young man family man, talented young man, and I hope that he will be joining us shortly. But I wanted to acknowledge him. I do not own the rights to his music, but as a permissible use, his interpretation, his um, talented fingering and touch to lift every voice and sing. Byron, thank you so much for allowing us to share it. All the rest of this time together, we will infuse music as we stopped at the 60s, and we're going to move into some music in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But interspersed through that are the great voices of our community, members of our community who will be joining us. And among them, one that has already joined, I must tell you, has co-authored an amazing book that you should get. It is called Little Fires Everywhere: Pandemic, Protest, Politics, and Power. Dr. Valencia Etner is a pastor in the Fort Worth area of Texas in the Central Methodist Episcopal Church. And I am going to read, before I have her join me, a little bit from her epilogue, which says, "Why the fires will continue. Waiting no more. The time is now." And I've shared this before, but I'm going to share part of it again. Here's the truth, she writes. This time had to come. There was no avoiding it, especially in an overt racist Trumpian environment. The infection has never been healed, only bandaged while still hurting. The scab of civil rights has never been fused into the skin of America, and the sore stays raised. Only when the perfunctory, rudimentary, going through the motions, acts give way to the real acknowledgement and repentance with action will America ever hope to be the United States. In fact, it needs to cease from using that erroneous description until it resembles the truth. America, God's grace, which is sung about, America the Beautiful, has been cheapened by the inability or lack of desire to see and acknowledge the sins of white foreparents as slave owners and rapists and capitalist pimps, by the cheering of the masses as multiple persons were lynched merely because of their heritage, by the twisting of scriptures to uphold the dehumanizing of persons throughout its history, by the institutionally driven profiling of African American men as probably criminal, no matter what their status, by the over-sexualization of African American women, by zoning and city planning that allows food deserts to make quality food inaccessible for many neighborhoods, by substandard health care, if available at all, and by the reduced expectation of educational systems that position African American children to underachieve, continuing the vicious cycle of poverty and disenfranchisement. For those who ask, what do they want? Let's start with the above mentioned issues. Then maybe we can sit at the table and figure out if united is attainable. But until then, we will protest, plan, push policy, and yes, pray simultaneously. We are skilled, capable, astute, and angry enough that backing down is not an option. Waiting is a hard no. The time is now. Pay attention. And that is an excerpt that was originally published in the Bright Star African American publication in the Lufkin Daily News, a part of Little Fires Everywhere: Pandemic, Protests, Politics, and Power. And I'm bringing Valencia Etner to join us. Thank you, Valencia, for joining us now.
Hello, Marcus. Thank
I'm
you so
always
much.
honored to have you with us, and honored to raise this book, which I think when we talk about Black history, I hope that many years from now, Black little girls, Valencia, read this and are empowered to do what you say in this epilogue simultaneously, all of these things. Because sometimes I think we choose one and we don't do the others. And what a force of power people will be, especially women will be, whose voices have been quelched, will be if we unite those things together. So welcome and thank you. You're no stranger to our platform, and thank you for joining us tonight. Valencia, I want to talk to you from your historian hat. I mean, we know you're in the
Okay.
Love Self community, but I want to talk to you about during part of our time here, and I hope that you can stay as long as you can stay. But for our time here, about can you think of events or an event or documents for you that you always think about when you're thinking about Black history, or that you want people to understand and hand down as a part of our heritage? You know, there's so much in the world, I see it, where people are saying, quelch that history. Stop saying all these bad things happen to y'all. Get over it and move on. That's the sentiment that I'm hearing in popular culture, that it is that was then, and we aren't those people, and we aren't even related to those people. And so, what would you say that people should make an Ebenezer, a living memorial to continue?
Let me say this first. I know that the people who were the architects of the things that happened to African American Black people are no longer alive. I understand that. But here's what I wrote this week.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have been the beneficiary
Mm-hmm.
of what they have accomplished,
Mm-hmm.
then the first thing beneficiaries understand is that before you can claim your lot, you need to pay your debt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm always concerned about when I hear someone say, you all should just get over that. Well, if we're all getting over it, then put all of the money that you got from what we did
Mm-hmm.
back in the pot that allows us to receive it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's really not about, reparations for me isn't just about finances.
Mm-hmm.
Reparations for me is about the depth of entitlement that made you feel like that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
That all of this was okay. And it's okay for you to continue to live with the spoils
Mm-hmm.
of what happened, and that you have no culpability, you have no liability for
Mhm.
those things. And no, you didn't do it, but neither did we. But we are still having to deal with the residual effects of
Mhm.
what happened during that season, that time. They try to keep calling it something other than what it was. The travesty, the tragedy, the genocide called slavery.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you just call it what it is, that might help us some.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the mere fact that you keep trying to put rose-colored glasses and keep putting lipstick on this pig
Mhm.
instead of calling it what it is, no
Mhm.
offense to the pigs,
Mhm.
but just call it what it is, face what it is, and maybe we can begin some concept of conciliatory conversation, because
Mhm.
there's no reconcile, because there was never a conciliatory relationship.
Mhm.
You can't reconcile what was never conciliatory.
Right.
So when I think of events, I think of so many,
Mhm.
and it dates me because I know what I've lived through now,
Mhm.
but I will never, I think the most vivid event in my life memory, in my mind's eye, and
Mhm.
it's the reason that I cannot stand firecrackers today,
Mhm.
is that as a 6-year-old child,
Mhm.
I lived through the riots
Mhm.
down the
Mhm.
street.
Yeah. What was that like? What was that like?
It was surreal for a little while,
Mhm.
but then it became very real in our household.
Mhm.
For those of you who have been around Detroit for a long time, you know the person of Reverend Roy A. Allen Sr., who was my grandfather. I'm grateful to God and honored to be his granddaughter in a whole lot of ways.
Mhm.
But one of the ways that I'm grateful for being his granddaughter is that he had a relationship with the governmental officials. A relationship not because they were friends, but because they knew that if he were involved, that there was something about his integrity that would bring that to the situation.
Mhm.
And so upon that, when this all was happening, I remember clearly when he got the phone call and that they were coming to pick him up to bring him to City Hall for a discussion of how to deal with it. We were absolutely devastated and afraid for the life of my grandfather. But then it flipped on us. People found out he went downtown, and then the threats started coming to the phone at the house. Those things that you heard in the stories of Medgar Evers and of Martin Luther King, of the bomb threats, well, we lived through it. And so because he was called to help to bring peace, people thought that it was that their job was to bring the sword. They wanted to blow up the household and all of those things that came along with it. Very fearful time. Grateful for a grandmother who was very no nonsense. Eva Allen was no nonsense. She was, this is what it is. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're going to do. Everybody stays downstairs. Nobody moves around the house without anyone knowing where you are. All of those things. She went into immediate, crisis action. And I don't know that she ever had a moment of training, but what she felt innately gave us calm in a very difficult situation. So I don't think that there is an event that is happening. I've lived through, like I said, several of them, some that have been difficult to watch. But this one was lived experience. And I don't know if you ever get over that. I think that it becomes something that you put into your experiential, bag. And you remember what it felt like, and you're able to teach the children that these things happened, and that even though there are those who want you to forget they happened, there are those who want you to sugarcoat what happened, to put a nice little glaze on it. The truth of the matter is, it was devastating. It was in addition to everything that had happened before. And during the Great Migration, many people from the South, my family's from Texas originally. So the mere fact that I'm back here and with the mindset of the government that is here is difficult for me. It's why I keep writing, because you can use more than just your feet. You can use your pen. You can use your platform to make the statements that need to be made. But they were, the Great Migration made several people, families, just move north. Yes, Henry Ford, for all of his, racist ways, did open a door, even though it wasn't the same door others got open, for many of our people to move in a different way in their lives, and to bring their families out of the South. It was maybe a different kind of plantation, but at least it was a plantation they got paid. But I remember succinctly that when my family moved to Detroit, it was in the mid-50s. During the time of the Great Migration, my grandfather was called, as we call in the Baptist church, called to Chapel Hill Baptist Church, which was struggling with some internal strife, and he was called to bring some calm to that situation. So that was kind of his, his mantra, his epitaph for his life. He was called to bring in the calm. And sometimes I find myself in that same space. But anyway, so that Great Migration brought all of these people to Detroit, to Chicago, to, all places north. But the mindset of the South, in a lot of ways, I'm remembering this song of the late, now great, the great, now late Burt Bacharach. And the song says, "In between the heartache." And in between the tragedies, in between the cultural lynchings, and not only the physical lynchings, but the cultural lynchings, which is what we're living in right now. Just in case you all don't know, this is a cultural lynching. This is a means by which to stop us from loving and sitting in our heritage. But in between that, we did some marvelous things.
Mhm.
So even though these people came from the South, and even though those who stayed in the South stayed, they didn't stop fighting.
Mhm.
So we've got some, when we look at a Raphael Warnock, we've got some things to be excited about.
Mhm.
So in between the heartache, we got some good stuff. We got some HBCUs, and we've got some people who have risen to heights. We've got some millionaires, and we've got some people who've had the opportunity to walk in some places, and they were prepared and they were able to walk in them. So it's not all a bad story. And so sometimes when I hear these politicians talk about how it hurts uh, uh, their children to hear what we say is, what you say is what happened. It hurts their. How can you determine that what is the truth of our history, though we've pushed through it? We keep pushing through it, not past it, but through it.
Mhm.
We keep pushing through it, but yet you want everyone to feel like those things were of no consequence. And
Mhm.
they are at the core of our being. Yes, we keep pushing through, and yes, we have some, I call it just some African DNA that keeps us pressing forward. But it wasn't because you opened the way for it to happen.
Mhm.
It was because just righteous indignation said no.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, I think about the riot. I think about what my family went through prior to it. I think about living in Texas and elderly people in Texas who clearly remember two different water fountains, who clearly remember that there were places they could not go. And then being able to go to those places gave them, after civil rights, gave them the thought that in between the heartache, that gave them the knowledge that yes, we were able to do this. We couldn't do this before. But then it always comes back around. It's like there's a circle back
Mm.
of 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 travesty, of
Mhm.
just those things that people continue to feel like it's okay to do to us as a race of people. But in between the heartache, we thrive.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
thrive.
I'm going to bring Valerie Colbert Olson waiting
Yes,
in.
great, great.
Thank you so much, Val, for joining us. How are you today?
I don't see you anymore, but I'm good.
You don't
We
see me
see you
anymore?
There,
now.
there you are. I see you
Okay.
now.
Okay. You see me
You
now.
know I'm not a techie, so I probably touched something.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll get there. And I appreciate you both. As I was saying to Valencia, I appreciate the brain trust, I call it, within the Love and Stuff community, and the heart for justice and all things for the love of justice. That's why I'm excited one day soon to have you all do your own For the Love of Justice series of shows on Tuesday night, because I think it is important for everybody to be connected to the love of justice, lest we forget. Lest we forget. And I think that's the challenge. So Val, as I asked Valencia, I'm asking you, is there an event or a document that you feel almost compelled to share with people as we go forward? I am, just young enough. I know I'm rubbing it in now, Valencia, but I'm just young enough not to have been born during the riots. I'm 3 years shy of that time, so I don't have any living memory of it. As a matter of fact, my family lived on Dexter Avenue at that time, and we moved when I was 1 year old. So I don't even have a memory of being on Dexter Avenue. But I had a sister, bless her memory, who was born in '67. So I have no recollection, of course, no point of reference personally for that time, but I've heard story and story and story. And I haven't heard, Valencia, as much from someone who was your age at that time. So I can only imagine when I was 5 and hearing firecrackers, or what I thought would have been very different to your experience of death threats and bomb threats and all of those things that went with it. And so I think there isn't enough that we say about the Detroit riots. And so I think maybe at some point throughout the year, For the Love of Justice should share that with the world a little bit more. Val, what would you say is an event or events or documents that you would say, I need to let people know that we need to carry this forward in our treasure trove of experiences to propel our love for justice? Did you lose me? You here? Uh-oh, Val. Can you all hear me? You can hear
I
me?
can hear you, but you're a little frozen. But that could be on my end. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. It's funny you should say that. I wasn't going to pick the riots, but something that you said that I want to kind of just throw out there. My father was a pastor for a long time in the city of Detroit for 35 years before he went on to Reward. And I can remember when, and our church was on Oakman Boulevard between Linwood and can't even think of the other street now. And so, and it's funny because I was in the area this summer going to the city's area where they have our files. And I was very close to the church that I grew up in. Of course, we sold it, moved on. And I went to the church, and I was so thrilled to see that there still was a placard that had my dad's name on the church. It just kind of thrilled me. But at any rate, I can remember, and then I'll get on to what I think is something significant to me. I can remember when the riots started, and I can remember with vivid, I was probably 5 or 6. And I remember it, maybe 7. I remember it vividly because we were leaving our night service. That was back when you had, all service all through the day, afternoon and night. And we had a visiting minister that morning from the South, a white man from the South. And he had, he and his family had eaten dinner with us at our house, and he had come back to preach at the night service. And his wife and kid, they did not act. They were staying on Dexter. Okay. And I remember after the night service, we were leaving and we're getting ready to drop him off at his house. And the vivid memory of the burning, the National Guard, all of that. And we were dropping this man off on Dexter. And he was too scared to get out of the car.
Wow.
Mind you, his wife and child were in another household with other people. They weren't alone. But he was too scared to get out of the house. So we actually out of the car. So we took him back to our residence. And I just have those vivid memories of that. And my father, as a minister, was asked to walk the streets, to give calm, to try, as a pastor in that particular area, to give calm and to try to, to bring that. And it was a bunch of ministers that were asked to do that. And he was one of them. Okay. And I was a little kid. So of course at the time, now I know the significance of everything that happened. But at the time, I really didn't know the significance of how important it was for people like him to be walking the streets at that time. And so, and of course, now I know the importance of the rebellion, as we call it, the rebellion at that time, and the significance and what it has, the impact it still is playing upon, the Detroit community. So I'm just kind of piggybacking on something that you were saying earlier about the migration and your grandfather and, that kind of thing. So that's a vivid memory, and it is probably something that would be interesting to talk about later. But for me, you asked for a document of this or that, and I didn't initially think I was going to do this, Marcus, today. I didn't think I was going to be able to do this, but there's just like a ton of things that flooded my mind. And I was going to do Martin Luther King, who was a favorite of mine, but I decided that I was going to go with the significance of Shirley Chisholm's presidential campaign. And as you know, Shirley Chisholm was the first Black U.S. representative elected in 1968 by the voters of New York to the 12th Congressional District. And she again became the first major party Black candidate for president in 1972. And she was the first female Democratic Party candidate for that office. And she set the precedent for both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And but she effectively reconciled what was two seemingly contradictory philosophies of racial, ethnic, and feminist pride with humanist and universal ideals to win over a broad spectrum of voters. So she probably was the first person to be able to make a coalition like Barack Obama did of various voters of all kinds of ages and races, okay? And she had a complex identity herself. She was female, she was Black, she was American, she was from Barbadian roots, she was working class, she was a child of immigrants. You know, she had all of those things that she had to transcend and to kind of coalesce into an identity that, you know, people would respond to. And so, you know, she had this philosophy of this West Indian. Anybody that knows, they have a philosophy of work and intellectual tradition. So she had all of that going for her. And really what she did was she had a long shot run for presidency. But it was very significant in politics and in American society. And she was a sounding trumpet, really, for change. And she was, you know, when you talk about hope and change, really, she kind of began that kind of spirit in politics among African Americans. And so she wanted to bring out the best in us to overcome our racial fears and the differences, and really to discard labels and to forget about old myths and old slogans. That was something that Shirley Chisholm tried to do and did do in her candidacy, and as a congressperson, she did do that. And she is the shoulders that many Black women, and but particularly Black women, stand on. And we know there's still not a lot of women in the Senate and not a lot of women in the Congress, but she paved the way for a multi-ethnic, racial, gender alliance. So what I wanted to kind of read, and do I still have some time, Marcus?
You got some time.
Okay. So one I wanted to read, and it's kind of long, but it's nice, is her remarks that she gave about her candidacy.
Okay.
And so she said, the topic this morning is, do women dare? And I have said, of course women dare. I assume that question implies, do women dare take an active part in society? And in particular, do they dare to take a part in the present social revolution? And I find the question as much an insult as I would the question, are you, as a Black person, willing to fight for your rights? America has been sufficiently sensitized to the answer. Whether or not Black people are willing to both fight and die for their rights, to make the question itself is asinine and superfluous. America is not yet sufficiently aware, but such a question applied to women is equally asinine and superfluous. I am, as obvious, both Black and a woman. And that is a good vantage point from which to view at least two elements of what is becoming a social revolution: the American Black Revolution and the women's liberation movement. But it is also a horrible disadvantage. It is a disadvantage, my friends, because America as a nation is both racist and anti-feminist. Racism and anti-feminism are two of the prime traditions of this country that we have to face objectively. For any individual, therefore, challenging social traditions is a giant step because there are no social traditions which do not have corresponding social sanctions. the sole purpose of which are to protect the sanctity of the traditions. Then when we ask the question, do women dare? We are not asking, are women capable of a break with tradition, so much as we are asking, are they capable of bearing with the sanctions that will be placed upon them? Coupling this with the hypothesis presented by some social thinkers and philosophers that in any given society, the most active group are those who are nearest to the particular freedom that they desire. It does not surprise me that those women most active and vocal on the issue of freedom for women are those who are young, white, and middle class. Nor is it also too surprising that there are not more from that group involved in the women's liberation movement. There certainly are reasons why more women are not involved, and this country, as I said, is anti-feminist. Few, if any, Americans are free of psychological wounds imposed by racism and anti-feminism, and we know that today. A few weeks ago, while testifying before the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, I noted that anti-feminism and every other form of discrimination is destructive both to those who perpetuate it and their victims. That males with their anti-feminism maim both themselves and their women. In Soul on Ice, Eldridge Cleaver pointed out how America's racial and sexual stereotypes were supposed to work. Whether his insight is correct or not, it bears close examination. Cleaver, in the passage, The Primal Mitosis, describes in detail the four major roles. There is the white female, who he considers to be ultra feminine because she is required to possess and project an image that is a sharp contrast to the white male image as the omnipotent administrator, all brain and no body. And he goes on to identify the black female as subfeminine or Amazon by virtue of her assignment to the lowly household chores and those corresponding jobs of tedious nature. He sums up the role of the black male as the supermasculine, menial, all body and no brain, because he is expected to supply society with this source of group power. What the roles and the strange interplay between them have meant to America, Cleaver goes on to point out quite well. Does not say, and what I think must be said, is that because of the bizarre aspects of the roles and the influence that non-traditional contact has on the general society, blacks and whites, males and females must operate almost independently of each other in order to escape from the quicksands of psychological slavery. Each black male and black female must escape first from their own historical trap before they can truly be effective in helping others. And that's very true. Therein lies one of the major reasons that there are not more women involved in the women liberation movement. Women cannot, for the most part, operate independently of males because they often do not have sufficient economic freedom. And remember, we're talking in the 60s, but that's kind of true today too, a little bit. Mm-hmm. In 1966, the median earnings of women who work full-time for a whole year was less than the income of males who work full-time for the whole year. We got pay equity issues today. In fact, white women workers made less than black male workers. Interesting. And of course, black women workers made the least of all. But where it is intentional, or whether it's intentional or not, women are paid less than men for the same work, no matter what their chosen field of work. Whether it is intentional or not, employment for women is regulated still more in terms of the jobs that are available to them. This is almost as true for white women as it is for black women. Whether it is intentional or not, when it becomes time for young high school girls to think about preparing for her career, her counselors, whether they be male or female, will first think of her so-called natural career, housewife and mother, and will begin to program her for a field which marriage and children will not unduly interfere. And that is exactly the same as the situation of the young Black or Puerto Rican who the racist counselor advises to prepare for service-oriented occupation because he did not even think of them entering a profession. So the response of the average young lady is precisely the same as the response of the average young Black passive agreement, because the odds do seem to be stacked against them. This is not happening as much as it once did to young minority group people. It is not happening because they have been radicalized and the country is becoming sensitized to its racist attitudes and the damage that it does. Young women must learn a lesson from that experience. They must rebel. They must react to the traditional stereotype. Education mapped out for them by society. Their education and training is programmed and planned for them from the moment the doctor said, Mrs. Jones is a beautiful baby girl. And Mrs. Jones begins believing mentally the things that she might have been and add the things the society says she must be. And that young woman, for society, begins to see her as a stereotype. The moment that her sex is determined, will be wrapped in a pink blanket, pink because that's the color of her caste, and the unequal segregation of sexes will have begun. Small wonder, therefore, that the young girl sitting across the desk from her counselor will not be able to say no to educational, economic, and social slavery. Small wonder, because she has been a psychological slave and programmed as such since the moment of her birth. On May 20th of this year, I introduced legislation concerning the equal employment opportunity for women. And at that time, I pointed out that there are 3.5 million more women in America, but women held only 2% of the managerial positions. That no women sat on the AFCIO Council, and interestingly at that time, or Supreme Court. The only two, and it's interesting, we only just got our first Black woman, a year ago? That only 2 women have ever held cabinet rank. And there were at that time only 2 women of ambassadorial ranks in the diplomatic corps. I stated then, as I do now, that this situation is outrageous. In my speech on the floor that day, I said, it is true. The part of the problem is that women have not been aggressive in demanding their rights. This is also true in the Black population for many years. They submitted to oppression and even cooperated with it. Women have done the same thing. But now there is an awareness of this situation, particularly among the younger segment of the population. And as in the field of equal rights for Blacks, Spanish Americans, Indians, and other groups, laws will not change such deep-seated problems overnight, but they can be used to provide protection for those who are abused and begin the process of evolutionary change by compelling the insensitive majority to re-examine this unconscious attitude. The law cannot do it for us. I'll repeat that. The law cannot do it for us. We must do it for ourselves. We must refuse to accept the old, the traditional roles and stereotypes. We must reject the great or Greek philosophers' thought. It is thy place, woman, to hold thy peace and keep us indoors. We must reject the thought of St. Paul, who said, let the woman marry in silence. And we must reject the Nietzschean thought, which says that when a woman inclines to learning, there's something wrong with her sex apparatus. But more than just rejecting, we must replace those thoughts and the concepts that they symbolize with positive value based on female experience. And a few short years ago, if you called most Negroes Black, it was tantamount to calling them the N-word. Now, Black is beautiful and Black is proud. There are relatively few people, white or Black, who do not recognize what has happened. And Black people have freed themselves from the dead weight of the albatross of the Blackness that once hung around their neck. They have done it by picking it up in their arms and holding them out with pride for all the world to see, They have done it by embracing it. Women must come to realize that the superficial symbolisms that surround us are negative only when we ourselves perceive and accept them as negative. We must begin to replace the old negative thoughts about our femininity with positive thoughts and positive actions that, that affirm more and more. Is it that we'll be breaking with tradition, or so when you break with tradition, you have to prepare yourself educationally? And I'll jot down, it's a pretty long speech, but I would really ask people to read it because it's still very pertinent today. And she goes on to say, I'm a politician. I detest the word because of the connotation that cling like slime to it. But for want of a better term, I must use it. I have been in politics for 20 years, and in that time, I've learned a few things about the role of women in politics. The major thing that I have learned is that women are the backbone of America's political organizations. They are the letter writers, the envelope stuffers. They are the largest number of potential voters. Yet they are but rarely the standard bearers or elected officials. Perhaps it is in America more than any country in this world that the inherent truth of the old Brahmi, the power behind the throne is a woman, is most readily apparent. And let me remind you once again of the relatively few women on the American political scene. There at that time, there were only 10 United States representatives. There's only one senator. No cabinet members that are women, no women on the Supreme Court. It is true that at the state level, the picture is somewhat brighter, but just as true that the North presents a surface that is somewhat more appealing when compared with the South. And she just goes on to talk about investing in ourselves. And she says, in conclusion, I believe that women have a special contribution to help bring order out of chaos, because they have qualities of leadership which are greatly needed today. I would urge people to read this speech which she gave regarding her nomination, because a lot of it is still true, but it's very interesting that was the prism in which she was running in. You know, one senator, no cabinet women, nobody on the Supreme Court. You know, that has changed, but it's still limited, you know, as it relates to women and African Americans. But again, you see her trying to coalesce both her Blackness and her gender for people to understand that, you know, this is a powerful kind of coalition that can come about. And as she says, women are the backbone of political organizations. We certainly know Black women are. We certainly know that they have carried the torch as it relates to candidates winning and people being, you know, out there being registered to vote and all of those things. So if I had to pick something significant, there's so many things that are significant. I would certainly choose to look at her speech, her candidacy, and you may even want to listen to, and I debated this too, the person, his name is Percy Sutton, and he actually gave the nomination speech at the Democratic Party, and it is a powerful speech.
Thank you for that, Val.
Everybody should take a look at.
Yeah, I appreciate you reading that in the record. It was quite a volume of speech, but I want, as I'm sitting here thinking, and we're going into Women's History Month, I think it would be great to bring back a segment for that, because I think one of the things that is needed among our millennial generation, though they are ready to hit the ground, is some of this groundwork that has already been done in helping them to stand as strong, resilient women with a coalition that is, we have the bare bones of which to build. And another thing before I go to this break that you both kind of talked about your father and grandfather, Barbara Jordan too, thank you so much for that, father and grandfather respectively. that pastors walked in peace. I heard both of you kind of talk about the pastors bringing peace, and I would love for the Love of Justice to spearhead pastors walking in their neighborhoods on the same day at some point throughout this year, just for the call of peace. Because what we find is not all pastors live in their neighborhoods or are even fully engaged. Well, what a clarion call that would be in the memory of your father and of your grandfather, who I had the pleasure to know and looked up to, Dr. Roy A. Allen, bless his memory, how those preachers did do work in their community to bring peace during times of storm. Boy, are we in storm. And what it would be to have pastors walk in the neighborhood. Now, I know some pastors would be scared to walk in some neighborhoods. Some pastors might even call them the hood. But if we're called to the highways, we're called to the hedges, and we'll go in and speak peace. And that came to me while you both were talking. So I'm always excited and could always talk to you. Valencia will tell you, I talk to her all night, and I can talk to Val all day. She can't hardly get no work done. So I appreciate putting that into the record. It was quite lengthy, but I think I want to have you come back, because I want to have a group of young women to come and have conversations with you during Women's History Month, because I think that is important for them to see. I'm thinking of Autumn. I'm thinking of Reese. I'm thinking of all of these young women who would benefit from this conversation and have this big sister space and woman space, because they're coming into womanhood. And so much of that information was so rich. I'm going to a quick break, and then I'm going to bring Darren back. And Valencia, before I bring Darren back, I want to talk to you right after this break and hear what you think about this little break here. We're live in Love and Stuff, and I wanted to play that as Val gave me a fitting segue to go into. Not only were some of these great singers, and bless the memory of the Queen of Soul, great singers, but they were big contributors to the civil rights movement. Her and Mahalia Jackson and many others who were contributors. And I use that as a segue to come back to you, Valencia, because I know on the stage you have played Aretha Franklin. So I wanted to bring that back just to circle back around, because in the first hour we walked through all genres of music as a part of our celebration. And I wanted to, just before I bring Darren on, to hear from you really quickly. tell me about that Aretha, playing Aretha, and what that might mean to you as her role in civil rights.
It was a little overwhelming at first because I knew I was doing Beehive in Detroit, and she was the Queen of Soul, but she was also Detroit, and so it was it was fine once I got to the understanding that I was doing tribute to, not trying to be her. And in doing so, and all that she represented, it not only as a singer and a foundation church girl. I mean, the original church girl who was singing non-church music, and then her civil rights, along with Mahalia Jackson and Nina Simone and Roberta Flack and all of those whose name, and Maya Angelou, who was in performing at that time. All of those names of people who you don't hear always connected to the civil rights movement, but they were there, and they were on their own dime sometime going to those places and going all around the country with those civil rights leaders. So to have the opportunity to give tribute to her as part of that theatrical production was a blessing for my life. Fantastic. It was an absolute blessing.
I'm bringing Darren in. It looks like he's having some trouble coming onto video. Darren, you with us? We lost him again. Okay, he's been trying to come in and out. Oh, here, I think we got him. All right, Darren, can you hear us? Nope, we have no. I can see you slightly. Can we hear you? Darren Williams.
Marcus, while Darren's coming, for those people who never looked at that album, the I've Never Loved a Man album, there are probably 7 absolute hits on that album. Dr. Feelgood's on that album. Baby, Baby, Baby's on that album. Her version of A Change Is Gonna Come is on that album. Do Right Woman, Do Right Man is on that album. So there's just a lot of history in that particular album. I've Never Loved a Man, of course, and that one as well. So it's just when you think of the Aretha Franklin album that you might want to put in your collection, that's the one, because most of the hits, the early hits are right there.
Got it.
Including
I'm trying to bring Darren into the screen. He is having the challenge of our time with this. Okay. All right. So we'll give him a chance to try to get back into focus. We'll try to give him back into focus. I have appreciated having both of you here. And as I hope that we'll give Darren a quick opportunity to get back in with us. Let's see. Still not quite registering, Darren. I don't know if you're in the space. I know our thoughts and prayers are with him. He's having a pretty tough time in the loss of his sister, and our prayers are with him and his family during this time. Kanata Hope Williams was an outstanding soul. So we are certainly in prayer with him and for him. Love and Stuff community in its entirety. And if you're joining us, whether you're watching on LinkedIn Live or Twitch TV, Twitter, YouTube events, or here on Facebook, I'm talking with Valencia Etner and Valerie Colbert Osunwedi. I'm trying to get you in, Darren. I see some notes there. All right. About documents and events. And I think that you get both of you, one, you gave us an event and a document. I'm going to flip it real quick. Is there a quick event, Val, that you have, a quick document, Valencia, that you want to reference while we're trying to get Darren in?
Val?
Quick event. That meant something to me. Black History moment. Other than the major events, but I'll synthesize it to something small. Which was significant to me. Now I went to a predominantly white high school, and I went to an all-female high school.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that I was one of many firsts, even though it was, pretty late time-wise for this to be time when you were the first.
Mhm.
I also got used to being the only in a class, and those things can be a point where of opportunity if you allow it to be, and it can also be daunting for some people. I always took it as an opportunity, but that just because how I was raised.
Mhm.
But I think of one significant event that I did do, me along with another young student, and we bought in probably every Black civil rights leader at the time in the city of Detroit, pastors, teachers. We were the first to begin a Black History Month celebration in
Mhm.
that school that didn't just involve bringing soul food to school.
Mhm.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
Mhm.
the opportunity to teach our history, as well as what was happening civically.
Mhm.
And that actual event remains to this day in
Mhm.
that school. And so I can say that that is an important event because I'm going to be honest to tell you, some of those young women in that school, maybe certainly when I was going there, things are a lot of more multi-ethnic now, but it was the first time they sat next to a Black person in school, and that was high school.
Mhm.
And we're talking about, the late 70s, and
Mhm.
that was high school where a lot of them never had the opportunity to be in a classroom with a Black person
Mhm.
or to be taught by, people of significance or to really hear, historians who were Black and civic leaders who were Black. So
Mhm.
that was an event, even it's personal to me, but what makes it more lasting to me is that it is still there as a outreach in that school today.
Got it. Valencia, what about you as your okay.
Um, Document. And I'm going to go artistic on this. I believe that Langston Hughes is the Weary Blues as a document
Mhm.
is something that is necessary to keep alive for a few reasons. One, he is the poet laureate of our lives,
Mhm.
and he lived in the most unusual years. He was born in 1902, and he died in I want to say 19. He lived through every single thing that happened. So I want to say it had to be 80s when he passed away. And so maybe 70s, but he had lived through every single thing that happened that was of historic great proportion in our lives. World War One, World War Two, all the world wars he lived through, through the tail end of Reconstruction and Jim Crow and civil rights. And so in that book is encaptured this wealth of information based on his history and what he was able to experience. And it
Mhm.
utilized two of the indigenous genres of our people, and that's blues and jazz. And
Mhm.
so it utilized those rhythmic patterns in each of those poems in different ways. And so that document, that little small book called The Weary Blues, written by Langston Hughes, I
Mhm.
believe if I had to put I'm a Zora Neale Hurston to my heart, but if I had to put something in a capsule, it would be Langston Hughes's The Weary Blues
Mhm.
as artistic and literary
Mhm.
perspectives go. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, we haven't we still haven't gotten him
Yeah.
in, and I am just I would say, growing up, having the benefit of growing up in a pretty organized, it was a Baptist church, pretty organized, um, no slight on the Baptist church, I'm just saying,
Oh,
eh,
gotcha.
organized association of churches.
Yes.
I learned maybe earlier than some about the Tulsa massacre, and that, as a young person, was always something that I thought about. There was a Wall Street, there was a Black Wall Street, there were Black owned, that, because of course I would be very young to have known much about Black Bottom, right? So for me, hearing about that and hearing about that massacre would be like, I was just so fascinated by that. It ties for me the Boston Massacre, because Crispus Attucks, in my mind, I always am fascinated with someone who fought for people that really didn't see him as a whole person. I'm always fascinated by that.
Oh, revolutionary. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by that, and that, I learned about him early. And of course, I, like Val, am a Dr. Martin Luther King aficionado. And so the I Have a Dream Detroit version, I will call it, I have always tried to keep that before me as something that I think we should keep in our lexicon of documents and things that we should share with everybody as often. And I think everybody could and should relate to a dream where people are treated fairly, where life is more equitable. I think it's a good foundation for everything that we see that isn't happening, and the few things that we see that is happening in diversity, equity, and inclusion for those that are on LinkedIn watching. I think it's a bare bones for thinking about dreaming and vision and an aspiration to be the best of yourself as an organization, a people, a society, or anything. And so if people are trying to build from scratch some diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think there are bare bones in that for you to be able to do that. And I gave that to you free. So if you're on LinkedIn, $59.99. No, I gave that to you free because you should be able to do that work by saying, hey, where do I start? There are very bare bones stuff there. And in Dr. King's word, chaos or community, there are bare bones things that you could start with about a pursuit of things being more equitable, about leveling playing fields, about having empathy and seeing things from the Negro's perspective, as he would say, having a day in the life of a Negro, having the day in the life of someone who goes home. When you say good night, I said in the post, some people say good night and they drive off to the suburbs. And some people say good night and they hope that they aren't profiled and stopped on the way home. And so those are two very different lives. And unless you're willing to have empathy about one or the other, you can never really have a discussion about diversity and equity. So some of the bare bones things that people, if you are dreaming as an organization, you want to enable diversity and equity in your organization. If you're listening on LinkedIn, particularly, I suggest to you to read the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It will do you well as you're building your framework out of which you want to enable equity and diversity in your organization. Darren is trying so hard, bless his heart.
I would also add too, in something that a lot of people don't read because it wasn't a popular speech at the time, but it was the coalescence of King's coming into the socioeconomic justice that wasn't just Black. It was, the knowledge of the inequity of wealth, and also militarism. And that was his speech that he gave at the Riverside Church, which was his anti-Vietnam speech, which, even the NAACP hated. Well, I shouldn't say hated. I won't say hate, but denounced him for making that speech. And in that speech, it talks about how we sent our Black soldiers over to Vietnam to fight for certain freedoms that they didn't have here, but also we have pictures of the white soldier and the Black soldier standing side by side, both challenging or fighting for these ideals, but at home they wouldn't even be able to sit one another, sit with one another, or go to the same schools. But it's even greater than that, where he's kind of looking at those inequities. He talks about materialism and capitalism, and how all of those things are the enemy of really the poor and the disenfranchised, not just here, but across, the world. And he was really coming into his global aspect of humanism, and transcending just civil rights were here, but human rights. He was beginning to coalesce, which he probably always was doing, but it was coalescing into what we should be considering to be humane ideals, human dignity for everyone. And that is a very powerful speech that people can read or download or whatever.
Yeah.
I would urge people to do that too. But
Fantastic.
yeah, I would urge people to do that too. Read that as well, because it is it's a powerful read as well. So
Fantastic. I want to thank you both. I'm going to go to Darren is still trying very hard to get in here, and I'm just not getting any video feed. I am going to close with our last three music pieces, because we went through all from the 1900s all the way to now we're in the 70s. And you might say, how did you choose these songs? Some of them were popularized songs. Some of them my favorites, of course, before the 70s. I wasn't born, so I couldn't really speak to those. But some of these songs in each decade, I think you will be able to relate to or have heard the artist. And I invite you to comment and to share. Of course, this is content that we use under permissible use, which is a fair use under the Copyright Act of 1976. And so from the 70s, tell me if you recognize this artist from the 70s. I'm still seeing Darren trying to get in. We appreciate you, Darren, for all that effort. That is fantastic. All right, let me see if I can get this artist in.
Strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song. And so I came to see him, to listen for a while. And there he was, this young boy, a stranger to my eyes, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song. He found my letters and read each one out loud. I prayed that he would finish, but he just kept right on, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song. He sang singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song. He was strumming my pain, yeah, he was singing my life, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song.
Yes, I know to my youngins, you're thinking the Fugees made that. They did not. They did not. They did their job with it. I love Lauryn Hill. I love me some Lauryn Hill, but I love me some Roberta
Me
Flack.
too.
And growing
And she
up
loved
with
what they did
older-
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And growing up with older siblings, I got to see all the basement dancing that was happening and the slow songs that happened. And this is one of the voices of that time. And so I had to share that. I won't play the whole of the other songs, I don't think, but I had to play the whole of that one because I think Roberta Flack deserves all of the accolades for that golden voice. And thankfully, she is still with us. And as was shared internally in our inbox, there is a PBS special, and we'll find the link and share it with you so that all of you can see that documentary. I'm moving quickly to the 80s. I'm going to do the 80s and 90s. I'm going to leave the 2000s up to you all. But the 80s, now people will, they will argue me on this, and that's okay. Everybody has their favorite. Some people are saying New Edition because that was, even though they started in 78, that the 80s was their heyday, and they were across all spans of some of the feel-good music. Some people say Whitney Houston, and she went from 80s to 90s. Some people say Prince, but I say that this person right here is who we have to at least give some kudos to in the history of music and his influence on culture, period, but particularly on music.
Yeah.
Now you know we get love us some Michael Jackson. He is. I wish I still had my leather jacket. I would still be trying to bust my move. And iconic, as was said in our internal inbox, we're in here jamming just for yeah. And if ever you want to jam with us, we got to get you inside Love and Stuff. But we in here jamming. And I know all of the other artists. We couldn't narrow it down to all of the artists in a decade, right? But when I think about the volume of his work, the volume of his catalog, and his impact on culture, and I don't care what people say, he may have bleached his skin or whatever you think he did with his skin. He belongs to us. And we are grateful for the contributions that he made. And you cannot talk about popular music and not mention Michael Jackson. And so all of this great music that America and the world has received has been through our African DNA. And so it's important that we continue to celebrate that as well. I'm going quickly to the 90s because we're at 9:26 and it's been a great time. But I'm going to the 90s. And again, you know, as they say, judge me. But this is one of the songs from the 90s. And some people will say, what? But it was a song that kind of did a little bit different and put women, I think, on the map in a different way. You tell me what you think about this.
A scrub is a guy that thinks he's fly and is also known as a buster. Always talking about what he wants and just sits on his broke ass. So no, I don't want your number, no. I don't wanna give you mine, and no, I don't wanna meet you nowhere, no. Don't want none of your time, and no, I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that can't get no love from me. Hanging on the passenger side of his best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that can't get no love from me. Hanging out the passenger side of his best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. Checking me, but his game is kinda weak, and I know that he cannot approach me, 'cause I'm looking like glass and he's looking like trash. Can't get with a deadbeat ass. So no, I don't want your number, no. I don't wanna give you mine, and no, I don't wanna meet you nowhere, no. Don't want none of your time. No, I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that can't get no love from me. Hanging out the passenger side of his best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that can't get no love from me. Hanging out the passenger side of his best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. You don't have a car and you're walking. Oh yes, son, I'm talking to you. If you live at home with your mama. Oh yes, son, I'm talking to you. If you have a shorty that you don't show love. Oh yes, son, I'm talking to you. Wanna get with me with no money? Oh no, I don't want no scrub. No scrub.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And again, we're in the inbox talking. And I think it's one of the times we saw in more recent popular music where women made the man the object, right? And so much of music, sometimes women are the object. But here you see the women taking control and saying, I'm setting the standards, which we want our young women to do, right? Because the women, you are the prize. Don't let no man tell you otherwise. And so you don't want no scrub sitting on the passenger side of his best friend's ride. And so many brothers was like, I ain't gonna be no scrub. I ain't sitting on the passenger side. It made you step up your game. And it was an interesting and groundbreaking time in music that these females were coming up and standing forward in their truth. And so that brings us up to the 2000s, and we leave it to everybody else to say, what is the music that's impacting our culture? And do we remember the music that impacted and reflected our lives and culture? So as we go quickly to a close, it's 9:30. I want to thank you, ladies, and I want to ask you, because we covered a gamut of stuff, is there another song that is in the melody of your heart that makes you say, I'm Black and out, or makes you say, I'm a woman, and that makes you think of the Black experience in some way, good, bad, or indifferent?
I think I will always default to McFadden and Whitehead's Ain't No Stopping Us Now. And I know it takes us back several decades, but I think there's an undercurrent of that need to keep saying that over and over and over again, because it has inherent in it a hope that whatever is not what's going to be.
That's good. What about you, Val? Any music that's coming to your mind?
I don't know why the song from India Arie, "I Am Not My Hair," that kind of is resonating. You know, she started that. Well, the appreciation of our beauty that is uniquely us, and it's interesting that that's so powerful right now. Kind of swung the pendulum, and now is back to being so powerful for right now. But that's kind of what springs to my mind is her song I'm Not My Hair. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Can I throw this in right quick? Parenthetically, I think that there's something going on right now in our culture where a Lizzo can win an award for saying you're special, knowing that we're special no matter what we look like. And a Mary J. Blige gets a different kind of award nomination for a song like Good Morning Gorgeous. I think that there is a need for us to get back to a place where we see in ourselves more than what the culture tells us we are.
Yeah, black is beautiful, and we have to internalize that. Absolutely.
I love it. I was going to go back to my second grade. Of course, Valencia will know this from people like Naomi Leopard and Jesse Lawson and the Sunshine Band, all the songs we sang as children. But in second grade, my first song in school was The Greatest Love of All.
Absolutely.
And Mrs. Griffith, who I'll never forget because I was in love with my second grade teacher. And she encouraged me. That was my first solo. And she said, if you believe this lyric, then you can sing the song. Anytime you believe the song that you're singing, then you can go up and sing it. And she kissed me on my forehead, and I'm a star. I've been a star ever since.
And George Benson is the writer, not anybody else.
Yes.
George Benson.
That is correct. That was the version that I heard at that time. And then later, Whitney Houston's version came out, who was my baby mama. Yeah, later after George Benson. But George Benson was where I started and grew up on that kind of voice, those crooners, Teddy Pendergrass, right?
Peabo Bryson.
Peabo Bryson. Of course, my I won't say idolized, but I was a big fan of Marvin Gaye. He could sing
of course.
anything. We played him earlier with that Star Spangled Banner and what's going on. No one brought sex appeal to the Star Spangled Banner like him. Everybody was like, people was probably like, hey, it's just he's had that
that thing.
All of those singers in that era. But yes, all of these, you're right. These self-affirmation and the beauty of self-identification songs are resurfacing, and may they never go away. May they be recycled throughout our history so that we embrace how beautiful a people that we are. So with that, I think is a fitting close. I'm going to close with Byron Stanfield's Lift Every Voice that we started with. He wasn't able to make it in the room tonight, but he is a member of our For Love and Justice team. I'm looking forward to having you all back on as soon as next month, because I think now that we've seen some engagement, now that we've seen some changes in the White House in midterm, let's not stop. There is so much more to do. And if we can raise every voice, lift every voice to vote and be engaged for the love of justice, we'll have accomplished much of what we have asked for. Yes. We're praying for everybody. I was trying to get out of here without saying that because I don't want to.
I'll say it because I know it's hard for you.
Yeah.
We want to pray for each person whose life has been impacted by the music, by the heart, by the life of Carolyn Cole. Just keep the whole music community, and especially gospel music community in Detroit, in your prayers. Those of us who have been there, those of us who are there now, this is devastating for us because she was love. Not only loved, but she was love, and she was always encouragement. And so please keep everybody in your prayers. Thanks.
All right. We're going to go to the close with Byron's version of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Click share and tag someone to join us. Thank you, Valencia Etner, Valerie Colbert Olsen-Wady. Thank you all. Thank you, Darren, for trying so hard to get in here with us. And Byron, thank you for allowing us to use your rendition for open and close. And we will see you soon.
In honor of Black History Month, lift every voice and sing.
Very beautiful.
Marcus, I want to congratulate you on Love and Stuff. I really want you to know that staying grateful and understanding the power of what it is to be operating out of a space of abundance and gratitude is the most important part of every journey of every day. So Marcus June, congratulations on this book. It's on Amazon now. That makes me so proud of you and your family and me and my family, and every single person around us gets it. So good on you for bringing it into the hands and the laps and the Kindles of all the people. Okay, so we're going to check it out. Can't wait to learn more.